The biting morning air cut through her skin, but the cold piercing her soul was far more intense. A solitary tear rolled down, warm and bitter, tracing an ephemeral path across her pale cheek before vanishing into the immensity of silence. The door closed with a soft, almost inaudible click, yet the sound echoed like thunder within her chest. A wordless goodbye, an abandonment without explanation. The solitary figure, huddled in the doorway, watched the silhouette recede, diminishing until it completely disappeared into the dawn mist. There were no screams, no pleas. Only the void, dense and heavy, that settled in the place of a future that had seemed so certain. Days dragged on, turning into weeks, then months, each one a silent testament to the passage of time and the depth of the wound. The mirror reflected an image she barely recognized, eyes once vibrant, now dull, laden with a sadness that seemed to have taken root. Life, once colorful and full of promises, had been tinged with a monotonous gray, where every breath was an effort, every sunrise, a reminder of absence. The house, once a vibrant home, became a sanctuary of painful memories, every object, every corner, an echo of laughter and plans that would never materialize. She moved through the rooms like a ghost, her presence almost as ethereal as the happiness that once resided there. The pain was not a scream, but a constant whisper, a sad melody that cradled her thoughts, preventing her from finding any trace of peace. The humiliation was not in the words spoken, but in the deafening silence that followed, in the absence of an explanation, in the cowardice of a goodbye that was never uttered. Years passed, and with them, the raw pain gave way to a deep scar, still sensitive to the touch. Anna Clare, now in her early 30s, carried the discreet elegance of someone who had learned to disguise melancholy beneath a layer of resilience. Her brown hair, once loose and carefree, was always pulled back in an impeccable bun, and her clothes, though simple, exuded a sobriety that contrasted with the vivacity of her youth. She had become a renowned architect, with her own office in the heart of New York City, a refuge of straight lines and complex projects that filled every minute of her existence. Architecture was her escape, her therapy, the only place where internal chaos could be organized into harmonious and functional forms. Every stroke on the drafting board, every structural calculation, was an act of control, an attempt to impose order on a world that had once completely disordered her. Her office, a minimalist space with large windows offering a panoramic view of the city, was the stage for her new life. There, she dedicated herself with an almost obsessive intensity to her projects, seeking perfection in every detail. Her team respected her but maintained a cautious distance, sensing the invisible barrier Anna Clare had erected around herself. She was fair, demanding, and, above all, professional. No one dared to question her decisions or her work ethic. However, behind the facade of unshakable competence, resided a woman who had closed herself off to love, to spontaneity, to anything that could threaten the fragile peace she had built. The fear of reliving the pain of abandonment was an insurmountable wall, and she preferred controlled solitude to the uncertainty of a new relationship. On a rainy afternoon, as she reviewed the plans for a new luxury development, the phone rang. It was her secretary, her voice hesitant. "Dr. Anna Clare, Mr. Gregson is here. He said he has an urgent and personal matter to discuss with you." The name Gregson sent a shiver down Anna Clare's spine. A name she had tried to erase from her memory, a ghost from a past she believed she had buried. Her heart, which for years had beaten at a steady, controlled rhythm, suddenly accelerated, an erratic beat that echoed in her ears. The pen in her hand slipped, slightly smudging the blueprint she was reviewing. She closed her eyes for an instant, taking a deep breath, trying to recompose the mask of indifference she wore so well. The urgency in the secretary's voice, the mention of personal, all indicated that the past, which she had tried so hard to keep at bay, was knocking at her door. And she knew, with a chilling certainty, that her life was about to change again, in a way she was unprepared to face. Anna Claire felt the weight of that name, Gregson, like an anchor being cast into a turbulent sea of memories. Every fiber of her being screamed for her to refuse, to tell her secretary she was busy, in a meeting, out of the country, any excuse to spare her from that confrontation. But a part of her, the one that still held wounded curiosity, the need to understand why, prevented her from fleeing. She took a deep breath, the air feeling dense and heavy in her lungs. "You can send him in, Brenda," she said, her voice sounding firmer than she actually felt. The sound of her own voice surprised her, a controlled melody that hid the internal turmoil. She adjusted her posture in the leather chair, her hands clasped on the table, an unconscious barrier against the imminent invasion. Her eyes fixed on the door, waiting, apprehensive, for the man who had shattered her world years ago. Time seemed to stretch, each second an eternity, as she prepared for the storm she knew was coming. The door opened slowly, and Gregson entered. He was no longer the young man with an easy smile and passionate gaze she had known. Years had carved lines into his face, and his eyes, once full of a youthful sparkle, now carried a shadow of weariness and perhaps, regret. He wore a well-tailored suit, but the elegance couldn't hide the tension in his shoulders. His eyes met hers, and for an instant, time stood still. A heavy silence filled the room, laden with unspoken memories, broken promises, and a pain that had never fully healed. Anna Claire felt a knot in her throat, a mixture of anger, sadness, and a pang of something she refused to name. He took a step forward, his hands in his pockets, as if he didn't know what to do with them. "Anna Claire," he began, his voice hoarse, almost a whisper. She didn't respond, merely observed him, her expression impassive, a shield against any emotion that might betray her. Gregson cleared his throat, breaking the oppressive silence. "I know you don't want to see me, and I understand. But I need to talk to you. It's about your mother." The mention of her mother, Mrs. Eleanor, made Anna Claire's shield waver for an instant. Her mother, a sweet and resilient woman, who had always supported her, even in the darkest moments. Anna Claire raised an eyebrow, a gesture that denoted skepticism and distrust. "What does my mother have to do with you, Gregson? And why did you wait all these years to show up?" Her voice was cold, cutting, each word a sharp blade. Gregson averted his gaze, visibly uncomfortable. "I know I failed you, Anna Claire. And Mrs. Eleanor too. But things are more complicated than they seem. I need your help. She's sick. Very sick." The news hit Anna Claire like a blow. Sick? Her mother had always been a rock, the personification of health and vitality. A wave of panic began to form in her chest, mixed with growing anger at the way Gregson was delivering the information. Anna Claire's anger erupted, a fury contained for years. "Sick? And you only come looking for me now? After years of silence, of abandoning me without a word, you show up with this story? Where were you when I needed you? Where were you when my mother needed you?" She stood up abruptly, her hands resting on the table, her gaze fixed on Gregson, who recoiled a step. "You have no right to show up here and bring me news like this. You lost that right the day you turned your back on me and everything we had." The words came out with an intensity that surprised her, revealing the depth of the hurt she still carried. Gregson tried to approach, but she raised her hand, a gesture of repulsion. "Don't come closer. Just tell me what's happening with my mother, and then leave. Forever." The pain in her voice was palpable, but she refused to show any weakness. Gregson, his voice choked, began to explain. "She has a rare degenerative disease. The doctors said the treatment is experimental and very expensive. I tried everything, Anna Claire. I sold what I had, but it's not enough. She needs urgent surgery, and only you, with your influence and your contacts, can get what we need." He seemed genuinely desperate, and the sincerity in his eyes, though late, was hard to ignore. Anna Claire felt a chill. Her mother, the woman who had raised her with so much love and sacrifice, was in danger. And the man who had abandoned her was there, asking for help, using her mother's illness as an unexpected link. The irony was cruel, the situation unbearable. She sat down again, her head spinning, trying to process the avalanche of information and emotions. The humiliation of having to depend on him to know about her own mother, the pain of seeing him there, the anger for her past, and now, the overwhelming fear for Mrs. Eleanor's life. The silence returned, but this time it was a silence charged with a new urgency. Anna Claire looked at Gregson, her eyes welling up, but not allowing a single tear to fall. You're telling me that my mother's life depends on me? And that you, after everything, are asking me to save her? Incredulity and pain mingled in her voice. Gregson nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on hers, pleading. "I know it's an absurd request, Anna Claire. I don't deserve anything from you. But Mrs. Eleanor, she always loved you so much. Please, think of her." His words, though laden with guilt, hit a sensitive spot. Her love for her mother was the only thing that kept her going. The idea of losing her, especially to a disease she didn't even know existed, was unbearable. Anna Claire felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. The decision she would have to make was not just about her mother, but about forgiveness, about the past, and about the future she had tried to build alone. The emotional hook was brutal, her mother's life in her hands, and the ghost of her past, Gregson, as the messenger of this terrible news. The news of Mrs. Eleanor's illness reverberated in Anna Claire's mind, echoing in every thought, suffocating every other emotion. Her anger at Gregson, though still present, was momentarily eclipsed by an overwhelming fear. Her mother, the woman who had been her safe harbor, her unshakable rock, was in danger. Her image, always strong and smiling, contrasted brutally with the fragility Gregson had described. Anna Claire felt a knot in her stomach, a sense of helplessness she hadn't experienced since his departure. She looked at Gregson, no longer with fury, but with a mixture of despair and a hint of resentment for him having brought this cruel reality to her door. "I need to see my mother," she said, her voice choked, barely recognizing her own tone. The priority was now clear, and personal pain would have to wait. Gregson, noticing the change in her gaze, felt a glimmer of hope. "She's hospitalized at St. Clair's Hospital, upstate. I can take you. She'll be so happy to see you." The mention of the upstate hospital brought a new wave of memories. It was the town where Anna Claire and Gregson had grown up, where their dreams were woven and then unraveled. The idea of returning to that place, with him, under such circumstances, was almost unbearable. But the image of her mother, alone and sick, was stronger than any aversion. Anna Claire nodded, a minimal gesture, but laden with resignation. "Give me the address. I'll go alone." She didn't want his company, didn't want to relive the forced intimacy of a trip. Gregson hesitated, but saw the determination in her eyes. "All right. But please, Anna Claire, be quick. Time is crucial." He handed her a paper with the address and the name of the responsible doctor, and Anna Claire took it without looking, her fingers trembling slightly. On the way upstate, Anna Claire's car cut through the increasingly familiar landscape, and each curve in the road brought with it a whirlwind of memories. The trees, the fields, the small houses by the highway, everything seemed to conspire to revive a past she had tried so hard to bury. She remembered car rides with Gregson, laughter, plans whispered to the wind. Now, silence was her only companion, heavy and oppressive. The landscape, once a scene of happiness, now seemed a mirror of her own melancholy. She tried to focus on the road, on the urgency of reaching her mother, but her mind insisted on wandering, revisiting every detail of that abandonment. The humiliation of being left, not by a fight, but by a cowardly silence, without a single explanation, without a goodbye. The pain of having to rebuild her life from scratch, alone, with a broken heart. Upon arriving at the hospital, the smell of antiseptic and the atmosphere of apprehension enveloped her. The corridor was long and silent, and each of Anna Claire's steps echoed in her ears, amplifying her anxiety. She found her mother in a simple room, her skin pale, her eyes closed. Mrs. Eleanor looked fragile, smaller than Anna Claire remembered, and a sharp pang of pain pierced her chest. She approached the bed, her heart heavy, and touched her mother's wrinkled hand. Her skin was cold. "Mom," she whispered, her voice choked. Mrs. Eleanor's eyes opened slowly, and a faint smile lit up her face upon seeing her daughter. "My Anna Claire, you came." Her voice was a thread, but the love in her eyes was unmistakable. Anna Claire felt tears well up, but held them back, promising herself to be strong for her mother. The conversation with the doctor was a reality shock. Dr. Miller, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, explained the severity of the degenerative disease, a rare condition affecting the central nervous system. "The treatment is experimental, Dr. Anna Claire. It involves complex surgery and high-cost medication that needs to be imported. There's no guarantee of success, but it's the only chance." He spoke about the risks, the exorbitant costs, the bureaucracy to get approval and import. Anna Claire listened, each word a blow, feeling the weight of responsibility crush her. The amount was astronomical, far beyond what she could afford alone, even with her professional success. The humiliation of having to resort to Gregson, or anyone else, to save her mother, was a heavy burden. She felt powerless, a feeling she detested. Leaving her mother's room, Anna Claire found Gregson waiting in the corridor. He stood up, his face marked by worry. "So? What did the doctor say?" Anna Claire stared at him, anger and despair mingling in her eyes. "He said it's serious. And that the treatment is extremely expensive. You knew that, didn't you? You knew I wouldn't be able to pay for it alone, and that's why you came looking for me." The accusation was implicit, and Gregson couldn't avert his gaze. I tried, Anna Claire. I swear. But I couldn't. I have nothing left." His confession, though sincere, didn't alleviate Anna Claire's pain. On the contrary, it deepened the feeling that she was being manipulated, dragged back into a past she wanted to forget. She felt a knot in her throat, the humiliation of having to depend on him, of having to relive this forced connection. The emotional hook was the urgent need to act, but the barrier of her pride in Gregson's presence made every step a torture. Night fell over the small upstate town, and with it, an even greater sense of desolation for Anna Claire. She refused to stay in the same hotel as Gregson, opting for a simple inn where silence was her only refuge. However, the silence brought no peace, only amplified the whirlwind of thoughts. The image of her fragile mother, the doctor's words about urgency and cost, and Gregson's uncomfortable presence, all mingled in a mental cacophony. She felt trapped, with no way out. The idea of having to depend on Gregson, the man who had hurt her so deeply, to save her mother, was a humiliation that burned in her chest. The cruel irony of the situation suffocated her. She, the successful architect, accustomed to solving complex problems with her own intelligence and effort, now found herself at a crossroads where her pride and her pain collided with her unconditional love for her mother. The next morning, Anna Claire returned to the hospital, determined to find a solution. She spent hours researching, making calls, consulting contacts in New York City, but the answer was always the same: the disease was rare, the treatment experimental, and the cost prohibitive for most. Doors closed one by one, and with each no, hope diminished, and frustration increased. She felt the weight of powerlessness, a feeling she detested. The healthcare system seemed an insurmountable wall, and bureaucracy an endless labyrinth. In a moment of despair, she found herself sitting on a bench in the hospital corridor, her face in her hands, tears finally streaming down, warm and uncontrollable. It was the first time in years she allowed herself to cry that way, without barriers, without the mask of strength. The pain was overwhelming, the feeling of failure unbearable. Gregson found her there, her eyes red and swollen. He sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "I know it's hard, Claire. I'm trying everything too. But I can't think of anything else." His voice was soft, laden with an empathy Claire didn't expect. She raised her head, her gaze fixed on a distant point. "There's nothing I can do, Gregson. The money, it's too much. And time is running out." The confession of her own vulnerability was bitter. Gregson hesitated, then pulled an envelope from his pocket. "I have a proposal. One that might help us. I know you'll hate me even more for this, but it's the only way I see." Claire looked at him with suspicion, her heart heavy. What else could he ask for? What else would she have to sacrifice? Gregson explained, his voice low and hesitant. "My father, before he passed away, left a considerable inheritance. But there's a condition. For me to access it, I need to be married. And it's not just any marriage. It has to be a real marriage, with someone he trusted. He always liked you, Claire. He always said you were the right woman for me." His words dropped like a bomb. Marriage? With him? The idea was absurd, revolting. Claire felt her blood run cold. The humiliation of having to submit to such a farce, of having to unite with the man who had abandoned her, was unimaginable. "Are you crazy, Gregson? I would never do that. Never." Her voice was a furious whisper, laden with repulsion. Gregson stared at her, his eyes pleading. "I know it's an insane request, Claire. But it's the only way. With this inheritance, we can pay for your mother's treatment, and we'll still have enough to ensure her recovery. I'm not asking you to love me, or to forget the past. I'm asking you to consider this for your mother. For her life." He extended the envelope, which contained the inheritance documents and the marriage clause. Claire took the envelope with trembling hands, her eyes fixed on the words that would seal her fate. The pain in her chest was almost physical, a mixture of anger, despair, and a deep sense of injustice. She was being forced into an impossible choice, between her pride and her mother's life. Claire stood up abruptly, the crumpled envelope in her hands. "I need to think," she said, her voice choked. I can't just accept this." She walked away, leaving Gregson alone in the corridor, with the weight of the proposal hanging in the air. Her mind was in a whirlwind. Marrying Gregson, even if it was just a contract, meant reliving the past, opening the wounds she had tried so hard to close. It meant giving away a part of herself that she swore never to give to anyone again. But the image of her mother, fighting for her life, was a silent scream echoing in her soul. The decision was agonizing, and the emotional hook was the certainty that, whatever her choice, she would be forced to confront the man who had broken her, and herself, in a way she never imagined. Claire spent the night awake, her mind in an incessant turmoil. Gregson's proposal was a poison disguised as an antidote. Marrying him meant tearing open the scars she had taken years to form, reliving the pain of a past she had tried so hard to forget. But the image of her mother, pale and fragile in her hospital bed, was a silent scream echoing in her soul, louder than any wounded pride. She found herself in a cruel dilemma, where the only way out seemed to be the most painful. The sun began to rise on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, but for Anna Claire, the world remained gray. The decision was not about her, but about Mrs. Eleanor's life. And for her mother, she would do anything, even the unthinkable. With a heavy heart and a shattered soul, Anna Claire returned to the hospital the next morning. She found Gregson in the same corridor, his expression anxious, waiting for her answer. She stared at him, her eyes welling up, but not allowing a single tear to fall. "I accept," she said, her voice almost inaudible, laden with bitter resignation. "But let it be clear, Gregson, this is a contract. An agreement to save my mother's life. There is no love, no forgiveness, no future for us. As soon as she's well, all this ends." The words came out like blades, cutting the air between them. Gregson nodded slowly, the sadness in his eyes confirming that he understood the gravity of the condition. "I know, Anna Claire. I expect nothing more than that. Just the chance to help Mrs. Eleanor." The formality of the agreement, the absence of any warmth, was a constant reminder of the insurmountable distance between them. The following days were a race against time. Anna Claire and Gregson, now united by a bitter purpose, began preparations for the wedding and for accessing the inheritance. The bureaucracy was exhausting, each document, each signature, a reminder of the farce they were living. They needed to present proof of a genuine relationship to Gregson's father's lawyers, which meant staging an intimacy that didn't exist. Forced dinners, superficial conversations, rehearsed smiles for photos that would be used as evidence. Every interaction was torture for Anna Claire, who felt humiliation corroding her dignity. She saw herself acting in a play, where the role of a passionate bride was the most difficult she had ever performed. The pain of having to feign love for a man who had abandoned her was excruciating, a betrayal of herself. News of the wedding spread quickly through the small town, and curious glances and malicious whispers began to emerge. Anna Claire, who had always valued her privacy and reputation, felt exposed, judged. People wondered how she could have gone back to Gregson after everything. She heard veiled comments about her comeback or how love always wins, and every word was a blow. No one knew the truth behind that agreement, no one understood the sacrifice she was making. The public humiliation was an additional burden, a weight she carried alone, unable to defend herself, unable to explain. She felt like a puppet, whose strings were pulled by circumstances and the past. The wedding was a small, discreet ceremony, held at the town hall. Anna Claire wore a simple white dress, but without any sparkle. Her eyes, though dry, carried the sadness of 1,000 nights. Beside Gregson, she exchanged rings, feeling the cold metal on her finger like a shackle. The words of the justice of the peace, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," sounded empty, devoid of any real meaning. There was no kiss, just a formal handshake, a seal for the contract that united them. That moment, which should have been one of joy and celebration, was for Anna Claire the culmination of her humiliation, proof that she had yielded, that her pride had been broken in the name of a greater love, the love for her mother. After the ceremony, they went directly to the bank to release the inheritance. The amount was indeed substantial, enough to cover Mrs. Eleanor's treatment and much more. Anna Claire felt a momentary relief, a small glimmer of light amidst the darkness. But the joy was quickly replaced by bitterness. The price of that amount was her freedom, her dignity, and the reopening of wounds she believed had healed. She looked at Gregson, who seemed equally exhausted and tormented. "Now, let's focus on my mother," she said, her voice firm, establishing the only priority. The emotional hook was the realization of the sacrifice, the forced union that now allowed them to fight for Mrs. Eleanor's life, but also trapped them in a web of resentment and an unresolved past. With the inheritance finally released, Anna Claire and Gregson were able to begin Mrs. Eleanor's treatment. The surgery was scheduled, and the imported medication arrived after a long and agonizing wait. Anna Claire dedicated herself entirely to her mother, spending hours by her side in the hospital, reading, talking, offering all the support she could. Gregson's presence was constant, but discreet. He also showed concern, visiting Mrs. Eleanor and talking with the doctors, always maintaining a respectful distance from Anna Claire. The dynamic between them was strange, a delicate dance of forced proximity and emotional detachment. They were husband and wife on paper, but strangers in soul, united only by Mrs. Eleanor's fragility. With each improvement in her mother, Anna Claire felt relief, but also a bitter reminder of the price she was paying. Mrs. Eleanor's recovery was slow and required much patience. Anna Claire, who had stepped away from her office in New York City, began to feel the weight of absence. Her projects were stalled, her team, without her direct leadership. The professional life she had built with such care was on the back burner, and anxiety began to gnaw at her. She felt torn between her responsibility for her mother and the need to maintain her career, her independence. Gregson, noticing her tension, offered to help with some office paperwork, but Anna Claire vehemently refused. She didn't want him to have any access to her professional life, to her fortress. Distrust was still an insurmountable wall between them, and the idea of mixing their lives beyond what was necessary was unthinkable. With Mrs. Eleanor's gradual improvement, the need to maintain the marriage farce became more evident. Gregson's father's lawyers began making unexpected visits, seeking proof that the marriage was real and that they lived as a couple. Anna Claire and Gregson were forced to live together in Gregson's old house, in the same upstate town where everything had begun. The house, once full of memories of young, innocent love, was now a stage for the enactment of a passionless marriage. Every object, every room, was a trigger for painful memories. They slept in separate rooms, kept conversations minimal, and avoided any physical contact. The tension in the air was palpable, and with each visit from the lawyers, the pressure to act like a happy couple increased, making the situation even more unbearable. The humiliation of having to feign love for strangers was excruciating for Anna Claire. She felt like an imposter, living a lie that consumed her from within. On one of these visits, the lawyer, a shrewd woman with a suspicious gaze, asked intimate questions about the couple's routine, about their future plans, about their reconciliation. Anna Claire struggled to maintain her composure, responding with short, evasive phrases, while Gregson tried to supplement with details that sounded convincing. With each lie told, Anna Claire felt a piece of her soul drain away. She saw herself trapped in a web of deceit, where her dignity was constantly tested. The pain of having to smile and feign happiness alongside the man who had abandoned her was a daily torture, a wound that refused to heal. One late afternoon, after a particularly exhausting visit from the lawyers, Anna Claire and Gregson were in the living room, the heavy silence between them. Anna Claire couldn't take it anymore. "How long do we have to live this farce, Gregson? I can't pretend anymore. I can't look at you anymore and have to smile as if nothing happened." Her voice was a whisper of despair, laden with years of hurt. Gregson looked at her, sadness in his eyes. "I know, Anna Claire. It's not easy for me either. But we need to hold on a little longer. Until Mrs. Eleanor is fully recovered and the inheritance is completely released. It's the only way." His answer, though understandable, didn't alleviate her pain. Anna Claire stood up and went to the window, watching the light rain begin to fall. You don't understand, Gregson. Every day that passes, I feel more trapped, more humiliated. I feel like I'm betraying myself, everything I built after you left me. She turned to him, her eyes welling up. You have no idea what it was like for me to rebuild my life, what it was like to overcome the pain of your abandonment. And now, I'm forced to relive all of it, every day, by your side. Her confession was a cry of pain, revealing the depth of the wound that still existed. Gregson listened in silence, his face pale, his eyes fixed on hers, absorbing every word, every accusation. He didn't try to defend himself, just looked at her with a deep sadness, realizing the extent of the damage he had caused. The routine in Gregson's house became a silent purgatory for Claire. Each day was a battle to maintain the facade, to hide the pain and resentment that simmered beneath her skin. She dedicated herself to Mrs. Eleanor at the hospital during the day, finding purpose and temporary relief from the farce there. But upon returning home, the heavy atmosphere and Gregson's presence suffocated her. They avoided crossing paths, maintaining a physical and emotional distance that was almost a tacit agreement. Meals were solitary, the rooms, devoid of any warmth. Claire felt like a prisoner in her own life, living under the same roof with the man who had broken her heart, and now, her dignity. With each sunrise, the feeling of entrapment intensified, and the hope for an end to that situation seemed increasingly distant. The pressure from the lawyers did not diminish. They demanded more proof, more photos, more details of Claire and Gregson's couple life. On one occasion, the lawyers suggested they should take a trip together, like a newlywed couple, to strengthen their bonds. The idea was absurd to Claire, but the threat of losing the inheritance, and consequently her mother's treatment, forced her to consider it. She felt a knot in her throat, the humiliation of having to stage a honeymoon with the man she despised. Gregson, sensing her despair, tried to argue against the trip, but the lawyer was unyielding. Those are the terms of the will, madam. We need irrefutable evidence of a genuine marriage. Claire felt the weight of the blackmail, the powerlessness in a situation that forced her beyond her limits. The forced trip was to a small inn in a nearby tourist town, a place that, under other circumstances, might have been romantic. For Claire, it was just another setting for her torture. They were forced to share the same room, the same bed, under the watchful eyes of the inn staff, who seemed curious about the couple who barely spoke. Claire felt every fiber of her body on alert, every nerve on edge. She slept dressed, facing the wall, as far as possible from Gregson, who respected her distance, but whose presence was a constant reminder of her situation. Each morning, she woke up exhausted, not from sleep, but from the continuous tension, from the need to keep her guard up. The forced intimacy, even if only spatial, was a violation of her privacy and her peace. During one of the dinners at the inn, Gregson tried to initiate a more personal conversation, perhaps hoping to break the ice. Claire, I know you hate me, and I understand. But I wanted you to know that I deeply regret everything I did. I was an immature kid, scared of responsibilities. I'm not that man anymore. His words, though sincere, hit Claire like a punch to the gut. She stared at him, her eyes flashing. Regret? Do you think an I'm sorry erases years of pain, Gregson? Erases the humiliation of being abandoned without a word? Erases what I had to go through to rebuild my life. Her voice was low, but laden with a contained fury. She continued, her voice choked with emotion. You don't know what it's like to have to look in the mirror every day and see the woman who was broken, who had to harden herself to survive. You don't know what it's like to have to pretend everything is fine, while inside, you're in pieces. And now, you ask me to believe in your regret, while forcing me to live this farce by your side? Her words were an outburst, an explosion of all the accumulated pain. Gregson listened in silence, his face pale, his eyes fixed on hers, absorbing every word, every accusation. He didn't try to defend himself, just looked at her with a deep sadness, realizing the extent of the damage he had caused. Clara abruptly stood up from the table, unable to continue the conversation. "I can't do this anymore, Gregson. I can't pretend anymore. I can't look at you anymore without feeling the pain of everything you did to me." She left the restaurant, leaving him alone, with the weight of her words hanging in the air. The humiliation of having to relive that past, of having to confront him with the truth of her pain, was exhausting. She felt at her limit, on the verge of a breakdown. The emotional hook was Clara's fragility, the imminence that she wouldn't be able to maintain the farce for much longer, and the need for a turning point that could alleviate her suffering or lead her to a definitive breaking point. Clara's escape from the inn's restaurant was an act of desperation. She ran aimlessly, her lungs burning, tears blurring her vision. She found refuge at a small overlook by a lake, where the night's silence was broken only by the croaking of frogs and the rustling of leaves. There, under the faint moonlight, she allowed herself to collapse. The pain, the anger, the humiliation, everything surfaced in a convulsive cry that seemed to cleanse her soul. She felt exhausted, empty, as if nothing was left inside her. The marriage farce, the forced proximity to Gregson, the constant threat of losing her mother, it was all too much to bear. She questioned her choices, her strength, her ability to continue. Despair was an abyss, and she felt she was on the verge of falling. Gregson found her hours later, sitting beside her on the bench at the overlook, without saying a word. He just stayed there, in silence, his presence a mixture of guilt and concern. Clara didn't look at him, but felt the weight of his gaze. The silence between them was different now, no longer of anger, but of a tacit understanding of the depth of her suffering. He didn't try to apologize again, nor justify his actions. He simply offered a bottle of water and a tissue, simple gestures that, somehow, broke down a little of the barrier. Clara took the water, drank in small sips, and wiped away her tears, feeling a minimal, but still, a relief. That moment of shared vulnerability, even if silent, was a subtle turning point. The next day, the drive back to the upstate town was equally silent, but with a different atmosphere. Clara's exhaustion was visible, and Gregson seemed to respect her space, without trying to force any interaction. Upon arriving home, Clara went straight to her mother's room at the hospital, seeking the only source of peace she still had left. Mrs. Eleanor was visibly better, stronger, and her smile was a balm for Clara's wounded soul. "My daughter, you look tired. Is everything all right?" Mrs. Eleanor asked, her voice still weak, but full of affection. Clara forced a smile, hiding the truth from her mother, protecting her from the complexity of her own pain. "Everything's fine, Mom. Just a little work." While Clara was at the hospital, Gregson received an unexpected call. It was an old college friend, who now worked at a large engineering firm in New York City. He had heard about Gregson and Clara's marriage and, out of curiosity, researched her career. Impressed with Clara's portfolio, he called Gregson, asking if she would be interested in an ambitious urban revitalization project in the capital. The proposal was irresistible, a project that could further boost Clara's career and place her on an international level. Gregson felt a mixture of joy and apprehension. He knew how much Clara valued her professional independence, and this was a golden opportunity for her. Gregson waited for Clara to return from the hospital, the news burning in his throat. When she entered the living room, exhausted, he hesitated for a moment, but decided she needed to know. "Clara, I have some news. I received a call from a friend." He's got a huge project in New York City, and they want you. It's an incredible opportunity, something that could change your career. He handed her a card with the contact and some project details. Claire took the card, her gaze suspicious. What are you up to now, Gregson? Is this another one of your manipulations? The distrust was automatic, a defense she had built over the years. Gregson stared at her, sincerity in his eyes. No, Claire. It's not a manipulation. It's a real opportunity for you. I know how important your career is. I just wanted you to know. He stepped away, leaving her with the card in her hand, her mind in a whirlwind. The news was unexpected, a ray of light amidst the darkness. A project in New York City, her passion. A chance to resume her professional life, to reconnect with the strong, independent woman she was before everything fell apart. The proposal was tempting, but the distrust towards Gregson was still an obstacle. The emotional hook was the introduction of a possible way out for Claire, a chance to regain control of her life, but which came through the man she resented so much, and which forced her to question her own defenses. The card with Gregson's friend's contact and the project details in New York City burned in Claire's hands. The news was a breath of fresh air amidst the emotional suffocation she had been feeling. The idea of resuming her professional life, of diving into a challenging project that would reconnect her with her passion for architecture, was too tempting to ignore. However, the source of that information, Gregson, was a constant reminder of the web of lies and humiliations in which she was trapped. Distrust was an ingrained instinct, a defense she had meticulously built over the years. She wondered what his intentions were, if there was some trap behind that good deed. Claire's mind was in a tug-of-war between hope and skepticism. Despite the distrust, the opportunity was too great to be dismissed. Claire decided to investigate on her own. She used her own contacts in New York City, discreetly, to verify the veracity of the project and the company's reputation. To her surprise, everything was confirmed. The project was real, ambitious, and the company, one of the most respected in the market. The news brought a mixture of relief and confusion. Gregson wasn't lying. He had genuinely offered her a chance to restart her career. The realization disarmed her a little, but not enough to break down all her barriers. She still wondered why he would do this, after everything. The complexity of the situation left her even more disturbed. With the confirmation of the opportunity, Claire felt a spark of her old strength reignite. She scheduled a meeting with the company representatives in New York City, determined to explore this new door. The trip to the capital was a relief, a respite from the suffocating atmosphere of Gregson's house. Upon stepping into her office, upon seeing her team again, she felt a wave of familiarity and belonging. It was as if she was returning home, to the part of herself that had been neglected. The meeting was a success. Her experience and portfolio impressed the executives, and the proposal to lead the urban revitalization project was formalized. Claire felt an enthusiasm she hadn't experienced in a long time, a sense of purpose that went beyond personal pain. Upon returning to the upstate town, Claire was different. There was a renewed sparkle in her eyes, a more erect posture, a determination that had been obscured by sadness. She had accepted the project, and that meant her professional life was back on track. However, the reality of her marriage to Gregson still hung over her. She knew she would need to find a way to reconcile her new life in New York City with the farce she still needed to maintain because of her mother. The situation was delicate, and she knew she would need a strategy to manage this duality without compromising her dignity or Mrs. Eleanor's recovery. One afternoon, while Mrs. Eleanor was peacefully napping at the hospital, Claire and Gregson were in the living room, the silence filled with tension. Anna Claire decided it was time to confront him about the project. "I accepted the project in New York City," she said, her voice firm, without beating around the bush. Gregson looked at her, a hint of surprise and satisfaction in his eyes. "That's great, Anna Claire. I knew you could do it." His response, without any trace of envy or resentment, disarmed her even more. She expected a different reaction, perhaps a comment about how she was leaving him alone, or some attempt at control. But he seemed genuinely happy for her. Anna Claire stared at him, her voice softer than expected. "Why did you do this, Gregson? Why did you give me this opportunity? After everything that happened, after everything I told you?" The question was laden with genuine curiosity, a search to understand the complexity of the man she thought she knew so well. Gregson sighed, his gaze distant. "Because I know how important your career is to you, Anna Claire. And because, despite everything, I still care about you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted to give you a chance to be happy again, to be the Anna Claire I knew, before I messed everything up." His confession, laden with painful sincerity, hit Anna Claire in a place she thought was shielded. The emotional hook was the revelation of a different facet of Gregson, which forced her to re-evaluate her perceptions and the complexity of her feelings, paving the way for a possible, albeit painful, reconciliation with the past. Gregson's confession, laden with genuine regret and unexpected concern, resonated in Anna Claire's mind for days. She found herself in an even greater dilemma. The anger and hurt, which were once solid and unshakable feelings, began to mix with a hint of confusion and even a strange compassion. She realized that Gregson had also been a victim, a pawn in a larger game, although that didn't justify his abandonment. The complexity of the situation tormented her. She found herself questioning everything she believed about the past, about love, about betrayal. The certainty of her pain still existed, but its origin seemed more nebulous, more multifaceted. The ice barrier around her heart, once impenetrable, now showed small cracks, allowing new emotions to seep in. The project in New York City began to take shape, and Anna Claire plunged headfirst into the work. The meetings, the new challenges, the energy of the capital, all of it was a balm for her soul. She felt alive again, connected with the strong and competent woman she had become. However, the need to return to Gregson's house upstate, to maintain the marriage farce and care for her mother, was a constant reminder of her divided reality. She spent the week in New York City, dedicating herself to work, and weekends upstate, acting as Gregson's wife and the devoted daughter. The duality of her life was exhausting, but the purpose of saving her mother and the passion for her work kept her going. Mrs. Eleanor's recovery progressed by leaps and bounds. The doctors were optimistic, and the experimental surgery had been a success. She was stronger, more lucid, and the joy of seeing her daughter and son-in-law together was evident in her eyes. Mrs. Eleanor, in her innocence, believed that love had prevailed, that Anna Claire and Gregson had reunited. She made plans for their future, spoke of grandchildren, of the life they would build together. Every word from her was a stab to Anna Claire's heart, who felt even more guilty about the farce. Her mother's joy was a heavy burden, a constant reminder of the lie she was living. The humiliation of having to sustain this illusion for her own mother was almost unbearable. One afternoon, while Anna Claire and Gregson were in the living room, discussing the details of Mrs. Eleanor's discharge, Gregson's father's lawyer made an unexpected visit. She brought the final documents for the full release of the inheritance, which would now be transferred to a joint account. "Congratulations to the couple," she said, with a forced smile. "All conditions have been met. Your marriage is legally recognized, and the inheritance is fully released." Her words should have brought relief, but for Anna Claire, they brought only a knot in her throat. The contract was fulfilled. The farce could, finally, come to an end. But the feeling of emptiness was overwhelming. The lawyer, before leaving, made a comment that hit Claire hard. "It's a shame Gregson's father isn't here to see your happiness. He always wanted Gregson to marry a woman like you, Claire. He always said you were the only one who could bring him to his senses." The words, spoken with apparent innocence, revealed a deeper layer of the story. Gregson's father, a rigid and controlling man, had orchestrated everything, perhaps even the marriage clause, to ensure his son settled down with the woman he approved of. Claire felt a chill. The farce was even more complex than she imagined, and the manipulation extended beyond Gregson. After the lawyer left, the silence in the room was deafening. Claire looked at Gregson, her eyes welling up, a mixture of anger and a new understanding. "So, that was it? Your father chose me for you? I was just a pawn in his game, a way for you to access the inheritance?" Her voice was a whisper, but laden with renewed pain. Gregson stared at her, his face pale, guilt evident in his eyes. "No, Claire. It wasn't like that. I truly loved you. My father he just wanted me to be happy. And he thought you were the right person for that." His confession, though late, revealed the complexity of his own story, the pressure he had also faced. The emotional hook was the revelation of a deeper truth, which, though painful, began to unravel the reasons behind Gregson's abandonment, setting the stage for a final confrontation where truths would be exposed and emotions pushed to the limit. The truth about Gregson's father's manipulation, coupled with Gregson's confession of regret, destabilized Claire in a way she hadn't expected. The anger, once so clear and directed, now mingled with a hint of confusion and a strange empathy. She realized that Gregson had also been a victim, a pawn in a larger game, although that didn't justify his abandonment. The complexity of the situation tormented her. She found herself questioning everything she believed about the past, about love, about betrayal. The certainty of her pain still existed, but its origin seemed more nebulous, more multifaceted. The ice barrier in her heart began to melt, not out of forgiveness, but out of a deeper understanding of human fragility. Mrs. Eleanor was discharged from the hospital, and the joy of having her home was a balm for Claire. Her mother, still fragile but with a renewed smile, was living proof that all the sacrifice had been worth it. She settled into Gregson's house, which was now also Claire's home, and Mrs. Eleanor's presence brought a warmth and lightness that had long been absent. Her mother, in her innocence, watched the couple with affection, making comments about how they formed a beautiful family, how their love was inspiring. Every word from her was a stab to Claire's heart, who felt even more guilty about the farce. Her mother's joy was a heavy burden, a constant reminder of the lie she was living. The humiliation of having to sustain this illusion for her own mother was almost unbearable. Claire's life became even more divided. During the week, she was in New York City, immersed in her project, reconnecting with her professional identity. On weekends, she returned upstate, to Gregson's house, where she acted as the devoted wife and loving daughter. With each return, the tension between her and Gregson subtly decreased. They began to talk more, not about the past, but about the present, about her project, about Mrs. Eleanor's recovery. Small gestures of care, exchanged glances, a silent complicity began to emerge, a connection that went beyond the contract, beyond the pain. Claire found herself noticing how much Gregson had matured, how much he strived to be a good man, a good husband to her and a good son-in-law to her mother. One Sunday afternoon, while Mrs. Eleanor was taking a nap, Claire and Gregson were on the porch of the house, watching the sunset. The silence between them was no longer heavy, but comfortable. Claire, feeling a need for clarity, decided it was time for a final confrontation, not of anger, but of truth. "Gregson," she began, her voice soft, but firm. "I need you to tell me everything. From the beginning. Why did you leave me? Why did you disappear without a word? I need to understand, truly, what happened." The question, laden with years of pain and curiosity, hung in the air. Gregson sighed, his gaze distant, as if reliving the past. "I was a coward, Anna Claire. A scared kid. My father, he never approved of our relationship. He wanted me to marry the daughter of one of his partners, to strengthen the business. He threatened me, said he would cut off all support, that he would disinherit me if I didn't break up with you. I was scared, Anna Claire. Scared of losing everything, of disappointing my father. And I didn't have the courage to tell you the truth. I thought it would be easier to just disappear, that you would forget me." His confession was painful, revealing the pressure and fear he had faced. He continued, his voice choked. "I regret it every day, Anna Claire. Hurting you, abandoning you. I know nothing justifies what I did, but I wanted you to know that I never forgot you. I truly loved you, and I still do. I just didn't know how to fight for you, for us." His words, laden with a vulnerability Anna Claire had never seen, deeply affected her. She felt tears well up, not from anger, but from a deep sadness for the story they could have had. The humiliation of abandonment, the pain of betrayal, everything mingled with an understanding of Gregson's fragility. The emotional hook was the complete exposure of the truth, the revelation of the reasons behind the abandonment, which, although not erasing the pain, opened a path to understanding and, perhaps, to a new kind of reconciliation. Gregson's confession, laden with a vulnerability Anna Claire had never witnessed, completely disarmed her. Tears streamed down her face, no longer from anger, but from a deep sadness for the story they could have had, and for the pain they had both carried. She looked at him, and for the first time in years, she saw not the betrayer, but the scared young man who had been manipulated by a controlling father. Understanding didn't erase the pain, but transformed it, giving it a new contour. The silence that followed was not of resentment, but of a painful acceptance of life's complexity and the choices we are sometimes forced to make. Anna Claire felt a weight lift from her shoulders, a part of that burden she had carried for so long. The following days were strangely calm. The truth, finally exposed, hung in the air, but in a way that allowed them to breathe. Anna Claire continued her work in New York City, but now, with each return upstate, Gregson's house no longer seemed like a stage for a farce, but a place where a new dynamic was forming. They talked openly, shared their concerns and their small triumphs. Mrs. Eleanor's presence, recovered and radiant, was a constant reminder of the miracle they had achieved together. She, in her silent wisdom, seemed to perceive the change in the air, the way Anna Claire and Gregson looked at each other, with a mixture of respect, sadness, and a hint of something new, yet unnamed. On a sunny afternoon, while Mrs. Eleanor was in her garden, Anna Claire and Gregson were in the living room, the inheritance documents on the table. The contract was fulfilled, the inheritance released, Anna Claire's mother, saved. It was time for Anna Claire to fulfill her part of the agreement, the divorce. She picked up the papers, her heart heavy, a mixture of relief and a strange melancholy. "Gregson," she began, her voice choked. "The contract is fulfilled. My mother is well. I'm going to file for divorce." The words came out with difficulty, and she avoided his gaze, fearing what she would see or what she would feel. Gregson looked at her, the sadness in his eyes palpable. "I know, Anna Claire. I understand. You have every right to move on with your life, to be happy. I just wanted you to know that I'm grateful for everything you did for Mrs. Eleanor. And that I I still love you." His confession, spoken with a sincerity that cut through the air, hit Claire hard. She looked up, and saw the genuine pain on his face, the same pain she had felt for so many years. In that moment, the humiliation of the past, the anger, everything seemed to diminish before his vulnerability. She realized that, despite everything, he had changed, had matured, and that the love he felt was real, though late. Claire felt a knot in her throat. The image of the past, of the abandoned and humiliated girl, began to fade, replaced by the strong and successful woman she had become. She had overcome the pain, rebuilt her life, and now, she stood before the man who had broken her, but who had also been the instrument to save her mother. She remembered all the times he silently supported her, how he strived to be a good husband to her and a good son-in-law to her mother. The emotional revenge she so desired, the inversion of humiliation, would not come from an angry confrontation, but from her own strength, from her ability to forgive, not him, but herself, for having carried so much resentment. She placed the divorce papers back on the table, and signed. She looked at Gregson, a sad and hopeful smile appearing on her lips. "Gregson, I don't know what the future holds for us. The pain of the past is still here, and it won't disappear overnight. But I see that you've changed. And I don't want to live with anger anymore. I want to be happy." She extended her hand to him, a gesture of truce, of a new possibility. "Perhaps, with time, we can build something new. Not what we lost, but something different, more mature, more true." Gregson took her hand, his eyes welling up, a glimmer of hope appearing in his gaze. That handshake was not a seal of romantic love, but of a new beginning, a chance for both of them to heal and, perhaps, rewrite their story. Life teaches us that true strength lies not in never falling, but in getting up, rebuilding oneself, and sometimes, finding redemption in unexpected places. Forgiveness, often, is not for the other, but for ourselves, freeing us from the shackles of the past to embrace a future of dignity and true love.